Two prisoners in a concentration camp made an identical choice. Both decided that life was no longer worth living. One day later, one of them changed his mind. The other did not. The difference? A silent question. What if the way to suffer less was to embrace pain with greater awareness? Viktor Frankl discovered this truth at the limits of the human condition in a concentration camp where everything was taken from him except the last freedom to choose his attitude in the face of the inevitable. Pain, when inevitable, is not punishment. It's a frontier of meaning. Suffering becomes unbearable only when it lacks significance. Before we philosophize, let's humanize. Each of us carries an invisible battlefield. And within it, the question is never, why do I suffer? It's, for what do I suffer? Because not all pain asks to be healed. Some ask to be heard. Imagine two ways of inhabiting suffering. Not enemies, just two languages of inner freedom. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who lived as a slave, wrote, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The Stoic doesn't erase emotions, he educates them. Apatheia is not indifference, but equanimity, the art of keeping the soul steady in the face of life's storms. It's not about not feeling, but about not letting the external storm become an internal one. But wait, this sounds like denial of emotion, and this is exactly where existentialism enters into silent conflict. Because one philosophy says you can control suffering through the mind, and the other says that trying to control is, in fact, running from who you are. This Stoic principle echoes in modern therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy. To reinterpret the event is to reinterpret the pain. Visually, it's the contrast between fortress and journey, between resisting and flowing. The Stoic builds an inner fortress where reason is the compass and fate is accepted without rebellion. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, lost 8 of his 13 children. And still he wrote, "Take away your opinion, and the complaint is taken away. Take away the complaint, and the harm is taken away." The mind is sanctuary. Pain as raw material for virtue. Which of these two responses do you naturally lean toward? Your answer reveals something profound about how you live. Kierkegaard called anxiety the dizziness of freedom, not a defect, but the price of existing. Rollo May deepened this idea. Existential anxiety is healthy because it reveals our awareness of non-being and finitude. It's the weight of being alive knowing you will die. It's the tension of being free knowing you must choose. But there's a turning point. When a person confronts this anguish, when they face it head-on, they grow. When they deny it, when they compress it in their chest, they develop neurotic anxiety, the kind that paralyzes, that screams without transforming into action. Healthy anxiety is what pushes you forward. Heidegger called this escape inauthenticity, living according to the they, not according to one's own being. Sartre named it bad faith, the refusal to assume one's own freedom. The existentialist doesn't seek to eliminate pain. They seek to transform it into personal truth. Where the Stoic builds walls, the existentialist opens windows. What the Stoic endures, the existentialist confronts. Frankl is the living bridge between both, the man who lived theory to the limits of reality. From Stoic serenity, he inherited mastery of attitude. From existentialism, the courage to search for meaning, even in the absurd. His logotherapy is born from this synthesis, accepting fate not to resign oneself, but to discover within it a for what capable of dignifying suffering. This is his revolution, transforming acceptance into transcendence. Frankl recounts that, in the concentration camps, he observed something extraordinary. Those who knew there was a task or a person waiting for them, a child abroad, an unfinished manuscript, a future responsibility as a Rechum, had the greatest chances of psychological survival. It wasn't blind optimism, it was inner direction. Meaning doesn't eliminate pain, but it reorganizes it. Suffering with meaning is different from suffering without reason. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Frankl transformed this phrase into method, into therapy, into living hope. The brain feels pain, meaning transcends it. It's not about denying what is intolerable. but about metamorphosing intolerance into transcendence through attitude. Frankl called this new dynamics, the healthy tension between what we are and what we must become. While modern psychology seeks balance, Frankl defends the opposite. The mind needs tension, purpose, inner direction. In the concentration camps, new dynamics was visible. The tension between what I've already lost and what I must still do was what kept meaning alive, even in extreme dehumanization. It wasn't comfort, it was mission. A man who expressed suicidal intent was awakened when Frankl reminded him, "There's an unfinished work waiting for you. No one else can complete it." Another man, upon learning his child was waiting for him abroad, chose to continue, not because of the pain he felt, but because of the responsibility he carried. The Stoic sees in this tension a fortress, the existentialist a crossing. Both recognize to flee from pain is to flee from oneself. Here's the problem. The Stoic says mental control. The existentialist says confrontation. They can't both be right. Or can they? Both philosophies agree on something fundamental. Unnecessary suffering is always a mistake. The Stoic eliminates false judgments. The existentialist eliminates illusions about their freedom. The difference isn't that one wants to suffer and the other doesn't. It's how each relates to suffering they cannot avoid. The question then isn't, can we train the mind to suffer less? But what is the most authentic way to suffer? The Stoic seeks equanimity, serene equality of soul in the face of the inevitable. The existentialist seeks to transform the inevitable into meaning. Frankl unites both. He accepts fate with Stoic serenity, but searches within it for existential meaning. Both reject useless suffering, but accept the inevitable as an act of freedom. Because suffering with meaning is different from suffering without reason. And in the end, perhaps the only real freedom is this: not choosing what happens, but choosing who you become within what happens. What you choose often already chooses you. Freedom is precisely discovering what you already are. In life, do you seek comfort without freedom, or do you embrace responsibility for your attitude? Because one thing is certain, pain won't rest until you face it. The question is, with which tool? And perhaps this is what philosophy truly is. Not answers, but invitations to become who you're capable of being. In your darkest hour, did you need to accept what couldn't be changed? Or did you need to fight for meaning? The answer might be both. Because true freedom isn't freedom from pain, it's freedom within pain. And that freedom, it's always available. It's always yours. Stoicism teaches us how to hold it. Existentialism teaches us why it matters. Frankl showed us how to transform it. And that transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "Why must I suffer?" and start asking, "For what will I use this suffering?" New videos every Thursday and Sunday. And remember, to think is to feel, and to feel sometimes is the beginning of understanding.